Now let's move on to France then, and of course everybody be aware of what's going on in France at the moment with huge riots again. This time as the result of a death at the hands of a policeman. The policeman now has been charged with homicide and is in custody, so we will see how that goes. But nonetheless, Patrick, obviously the situation in France is absolutely at boiling point, and anything that comes along is really triggering people out on the streets at the moment. Macron holding all kinds of emergency meetings, wondering what to do about it. But really, that country, is it too extreme to suggest that it's very close to civil war, perhaps conflict within itself?
Yeah, that footage you just showed right there, pretty shocking. That's from the Pablo Picasso district of the city of Nanterre in France. Yes, and Emmanuel Macron was forced to come back from Brussels to lead a crisis meeting, so the French equivalent of Cobra. So yeah, it's cascading across the country. This kind of was a police brutality story initially that gained a lot of traction, the grassroots, and France is just a tinderbox in terms of, let's say, people that are very disgruntled with the government. And you can say this is an extension of the vaccine passport whole debacle for the Macron government and the widespread protests. That was an amazing movement that was even more diverse than the Yellow Vest movement. So all of these things have compounded, plus Macron's invoking the sort of judicial hammer, as it were, to bypass parliament for legislation. So that running kind of state of emergency style government, very unpopular president, doesn't have a mandate, and he still wants to crown himself emperor in the next election cycle.
Yes.
Okay.
What can I say? Right. Okay. So, well, let's.
Sorry.
Yeah. Let's move on then to the United States. And you've got a headline from 21 War here. U.S. Supreme Court votes to end university admissions based on race.
This is affirmative action. That's what most people will know this by. This was a policy that was implemented by JFK, of all people, in 1963. And it was designed initially to sort of balance out the representation of various races and ethnic groups and so forth. And it really held the day until 1996, when a number of court decisions, basically dropped it in California, Prop 209, and of course the Fifth Circuit ruling that banned it in multiple states. But since that time, universities have still kept this policy. And one of these universities is Ivy League Harvard, and there's others as well. But this particular case was brought against Harvard and the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And the court confirmed that institutions like Harvard automatically awards racial preferences to African Americans and Hispanics while penalizing white and Asian Americans. And this brings up that issue of Asian quotas. This is the sort of policy at Harvard where they've discriminated against Chinese American students, for instance, in favor of other quotas for African Americans and Hispanics. And they go on. This is a landmark ruling, by the way. This policy has held pretty much firm in a lot of institutions for employment and for college admissions. The Harvard and UNC admissions programs cannot be reconciled with the guarantees of the Equal Protection Clause under the 14th Amendment, says the majority Supreme Court opinion. I think it was a 6-3 decision. So the other thing is, this is a legacy of Donald Trump's presidency, where he appointed a number of conservative justices, Amy Coney Barrett, Brett Kavanaugh, and so this is part of that legacy. So there's been a liberal court for the better part of the 20th century, second half of the 20th century. And now you're starting to see with the abortion Roe v. Wade ruling, plus this, the next one up is going to be Biden's student loan forgiveness. That's coming up. This is a very productive judicial session here for the Supreme Court, but it's raised the ear and the anger of progressives and Democrats, and also Joe Biden himself. I think we have Biden's comment on this, if we can roll that video.
Where a student grew up and went to high school. It means understanding
the particular hardships that each individual student has faced in life, including racial discrimination that individuals have faced in their own lives. The court says, quote, nothing in this opinion should be construed as prohibiting universities from considering an application's discussion of how race has affected his or her life, but be it through discrimination or inspiration or otherwise, end of quote. Because the truth is, we all know it, discrimination still exists in America. Discrimination still exists in America. Discrimination still exists in America. Today.
So you had to repeat it 3 times. So the truth is, unfortunately, I'm going to have to disagree with the president. America has laws, and in fact, discrimination is unconstitutional. You can't find any real institutional examples of discrimination in America. In fact, of all the countries on the planet, it's probably the least discriminatory compared to other countries. So I don't know what the president's talking about, but these are the sort of dog whistle issues that is stock and trade for the Democratic Party, especially during an election cycle. So pumping up the fear that these racist laws are going to be passed if Republicans get into office. Social Security is going to be taken away from the elderly, and they're going to be thrown out on the streets in destitution, and all these sort of talking points. So Biden is at it again, basically. So apparently America is a racist country, but nobody can find any actual examples where racism is an institutional issue. It's just expected to be so through the rhetoric of the left in this case.
Okay, thank you for that, Pat.